Hey Keegan, I'm talking about Thomas Nagel's article on sexual perversion. Thomas Nagel basically goes to make the claim that there are some sexual perversions. He gives kind of like three ground rules for this assessment. The first being that a sexual perversion is basically an unnatural sexual desire. Um, the second being some desires are perversions, some are not, and some are kind of up in the air, basically questionable. The third rule, he says that sexual perversions are sexual inclinations and not sexual acts. So what he means by that is it has to be an actual sexual desire, not just simply a practice of like putting on a condom or um, taking a birth control pill, because generally people do those things for external reasons, not because they're turned on by putting on a condom or taking a birth control pill. Um, he goes on to say that sexual perversion has nothing to do with reproductivity. Um, he gives the example of the seedless orange. He says, you wouldn't say a seedless orange is perverted. It's merely because of the physiology. The seedless orange, it has no psychological complexity, which he says you must need in order to have a sexual perversion. He goes on to argue that about the psychological complexity, because some people say there are no sexual perversions because it's an inherent desire like hunger. He knocks this argument down by talking about the psychological complexities that have to do with sex that don't exist with hunger. Um, Psychological complexities between two people. He talks about mutual recognition, which he basically takes from Sartre's argument when Sartre talks about double reciprocal reincarnation or incarnation. He talks about the mutual desire about the man and the woman in the bar, him recognizing her recognizing that he recognizes her, and then him recognizing that she recognizing him. It just goes on to emphasize the complexity of sexual desire, and that how that level is necessary between two people. Um, he goes on to end the argument by saying sexual perversions are basically just one aspect of sex, and it's an evaluative description, kind of. It's not. It doesn't mean it's necessarily morally bad. It doesn't mean it's bad sex as far as enjoyment goes. Um, so he basically gives it this kind of objective meaning that something being perverse doesn't necessarily mean it's morally wrong. I really like the article because Thomas Nagel does a good job of really giving the evaluative qualifications for sexual perversions, and how he kind of strips it of all its negative connotations that I think it comes with, at least before this article. Someone says something sexually perverse, it seems to have bad implications, but by giving it this definition, he kind of strips it of all that meaning and turns it into this kind of objective, evaluative definition, which I thought was really interesting. What I didn't like, he seems kind of a little too liberal when he talks about how there's no moral distinction of perversions, and I know what he means when he says it's the relationship between a human and an object. It's that sexual desire, that relationship of that desire that makes it perverse, which I can agree with, but I think a lot of people would also agree with that the relationship to that object can be so perverse that it can be morally bad. For example, if someone can only be sexually turned on by rape, I think a lot of people would agree that it's pretty immoral to rape someone just because of your perverse sexual desire. Maybe that exact desire is perverse and not necessarily immoral, just because of its relationship, but acting on it then definitely makes it immoral, because to have it is one thing, but to act on it and to impose your will on someone in such a way, I think is immoral, and I think he understands that, but I kind of was surprised he didn't at least clear that up to kind of make it known that he wasn't advocating anything, like anything goes. But yeah, that's it. Thanks for listening.